What is going on, everybody? Ash here, and I just got back from day 2 of Summer Game Fest Play Days, where I got to play the first ever demo of Sonic X Shadow Generations. Now, as a huge Sonic fan myself, when I found out that this was going to be among the titles playable at the show, that was one of the biggest priorities for me, and I'm so excited to be here to talk to you all about it right now. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. There were 2 new levels playable on the Shadow side, Space Colony Arc Act 1 and the Biolizard boss fight, both of which are obviously based on Sonic Adventure 2. Now, what's interesting is the first half of Space Colony Arc Act 1 is based on the final chase level from Sonic Adventure 2, which is Shadow's final level in that game, but the music is actually a remix of the arc from Shadow the Hedgehog, but that song was originally based on Final Rush from Adventure 2, which is Sonic's final stage, so it's a little bit confusing, but the stage itself, visually and gameplay-wise, is indeed based on Final Chase from Adventure 2. And then what's really interesting is that halfway through the stage, Black Doom appears. The Shadow's nemesis, Black Doom from Shadow the Hedgehog, appears in his Doom's Eye form and whisks Shadow away to like this weird nightmare psychedelic hell version of Radical Highway, also from Adventure 2. It's pretty wild the way it happens, but clearly there is a lot of love for Sonic Adventure 2 just in this demo alone. Sonic Team clearly knows how beloved this game is by the fan base, and they are not pulling any punches in terms of pulling content straight from it. But let's talk about the level itself. How does it feel? How do the controls feel? Honestly, I am so happy to report that it feels like Sonic Team is really cooking here. Now, I'm a big fan of the original Sonic Generations. I think the modern Sonic levels represent some of the best examples of the boost style of gameplay in modern Sonic games. So I love pretty much all of the boost stages in the original Sonic Generations, and the quality of the level design here in Space Colony Arc Act 1 is every bit on par with those. It feels like this slots in so beautifully next to the existing boost style stages in the original Sonic Generations, and I'm just so happy for that. The controls feel great. There is minimal jank. I had no accidental deaths. Shadow's warp attack feels cool, and it looks even cooler. Just playing the game feels great, and if you're a fan of the modern Sonic boost style stages in Generations and also Unleashed and also Colors, I think you're really gonna like how Shadow feels to play in these stages. And the level design itself, it's great. It's got this push and pull, this cadence between these wide open areas where Shadow can boost around and reach his maximum speed, and you get that sense of speed, that sense of scale. But then, you know, like in Generations, those sequences are broken up by slower paced platforming sections where you're attacking from enemy to enemy to enemy and stringing together multiple actions with the various gimmicks in the stage, and those feel great too. And there are multiple paths too. There are multiple paths throughout the stage. In fact, I played this stage multiple times, and on one of my runs, I took a different path and I ended up snagging a coin that had a musical note on it. And at the end of the stage, when I got to the results screen, I noticed that the music coin that I got was filled in next to 2 other ones that I didn't get. It looked like they had like a book or a journal on it, and then the other one looked like it had like a canvas for like a drawing on it. So this isn't confirmed or anything, but that suggests to me that there are going to be like 3 optional coins for you to collect per level, kind of like the 5 red rings in Sonic stages. And these will probably unlock new music, new art, maybe new lore or journal entries, or maybe interviews with the developers, something like that. But yeah, just in general, there are multiple paths. The level I played had a great rhythm to it, and the controls feel great. Now let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit to the other new playable level in the demo, which was the Biolizard boss fight. This is a lot more standard in the sense that, you know, if you play the original, you kind of know what to expect here. It's the Biolizard boss fight you know and maybe love, but it's just bigger. It looks way better, obviously. It's on a grander scale. There's a whole new mutation that the Biolizard goes through that's super gross. Like, they take the purple-pink blob things from the original game and make them super gross here in this version of the boss fight, because they actually grow out of the Biolizard's skin, and he looks really weird with it, and it looks cool. It really looks like you're fighting like a giant, twisted, tortured monster, and it really works. Of course, with the new version of supporting me playing in the background, it makes it even better. So the boss fight does have some new patterns and some new forms to go through, so it's not like you're playing the exact same boss fight, but it is clearly based on the same overall concept. Toward the end, you do get a brand new sequence where you get access to Shadow's Chaos Spear attack. Now, this is not something you can use at any time. It is context-based, so like for the other stage, for Space Colony Arc Act 1, you can't just use Chaos Spear anytime. This was specifically something that I used for this sequence of the boss fight. Shadow throws Chaos Spears to destroy these projectiles that the Biolizard is firing at him, and then the whole thing ends in a super crazy anime-style Spirit Bomb QTE where Shadow is punching and kicking a giant energy ball right back at the Biolizard, and if you love Shadow, it is exactly the kind of just over-the-top nonsense that you would hope and expect from a boss fight like this. It's very cool. Switching back to the Space Colony Arc Act 1 stage for a second, there is a chaos control mechanic, and that's predominantly used to freeze time in order to use missiles as makeshift platforms. And that's like the required use of it. But what was interesting is later on, I just kind of started messing around with chaos control in areas the game wasn't requiring you to use it. And in one area, this glowing green path that was an alternate path from the other ones I could have taken just suddenly appeared before me. And Shadow can glide across this green energy path and use it as a new path that isn't there if you're not using chaos control at that particular time. So it does seem as though Sonic Team are encouraging you to kind of experiment with chaos control and see what it might reveal when you use it in places where it isn't required. Now, the last thing I want to mention about the controls and gameplay is that they actually took a page from Sonic Frontiers' book, where the boosting is now mapped to R2 and warp attacking is now mapped to square, like in Frontiers. So not a huge change, but personally I think it's a welcome one. I think boosting was better being mapped to R2 like in Frontiers. And of course, I'm using PlayStation nomenclature because that is the version I played. I played it on PS5. But if you're going to be playing on a different platform, you know which buttons I'm talking about on your preferred platform. And that's basically it for the Shadow side of things. So let's briefly touch on the Sonic side of things, because they did include 2 Sonic levels in the demo as well. And what's interesting is there are actually 2 different title screens, Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations, separately. It's not Sonic X Shadow Generations in the demo. You literally, if you want to play the Shadow stages, you have a Shadow Generations title screen, and then same for Sonic. Now, the levels available for Sonic in the demo were just Green Hill Act 1 and Green Hill Act 2, 1 classic Sonic stage, 1 modern Sonic stage, and that's it. And there's really not much to say. It looks and feels great, just like the original did. Again, I'm a big fan of the original Generations, and it still feels great here. It especially looks really nice, and what's interesting is it seems like they're trying to kind of strike a careful balance where they clearly went back and touched up the graphics so that it's a good-looking game in 2024, but they didn't go back and overhaul all the graphics to such an extent that you no longer recognize the game as Sonic Generations. So it's clearly touched up, it clearly looks better than the original, but it is still very much recognizable as Sonic Generations. It's super lush and vibrant, the colors are beautiful, it looks great. The only major difference on the Sonic side of things for gameplay is that both classic Sonic and modern Sonic now have access to the drop dash, which, hey, great. I love the drop dash. So the fact that they both have access to that move now just makes the gameplay that much smoother. But that really is it, other than, of course, boosting now being on R2 and Sonic's homing attack now being on square instead of X. So that basically covers the content of the demo. Now, there is one major bad thing that I want to talk about. The demo starts you off in what they call image quality mode, which in other games might be called graphics mode. Basically, it's for higher resolution versus performance. And it's rough, man. I'm telling you, like, frame drops everywhere, pretty jittery. I'm thinking like 25 to 30 FPS most of the time. It is not how you want to play this game. Thankfully, I went to the options menu, and there is a performance mode as well that prioritizes frame rate. And just like in Sonic Frontiers, when you switch to performance mode, it is suddenly smooth sailing. And by smooth, I mean buttery smooth, 60 FPS throughout, and that is how you want to play this game. And honestly, it didn't come with what I would call a noticeable drop in image quality. I think this game looks great either way, and I played the vast majority of my time on performance mode and was not at all let down or unimpressed with the way the game looks. That's really the only bad part of the demo, though. Everything else I'm feeling really good about. I think Sonic Team feels very confident with what they're making here, and based on the new levels I played, I'm really looking forward to experiencing the rest of the new Shadow levels. The one thing I didn't get to experience was the new open zone white space that Shadow's going to have access to, where Shadow's going to be able to go out and explore this open zone white space that's completely separate from Sonic's. That wasn't in the demo, so I can't talk about it. I wish I could, but I am looking forward to experiencing that all the same. And that's about it. I really hope you've enjoyed this preview of Sonic X Shadow Generations. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoy what we do here at GVG, please do consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming. But even if you can't, no worries. Just like and subscribe, and that makes all the difference to us. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you later. Bye.